Brought to you by Incogni. Now, the difference between an average person and a billionaire is essentially zero. Unfortunately, about 9 of them. Nevertheless, if you're a regular person,
I'll watch this. This is, by the way, this is what I have tried to explain to chat. This is why when people, okay, I think it is fine if you want to criticize Hassan for a bunch of stuff, but Hassan being a millionaire, like I don't think people realize that like normal people, like a normal average person, maybe they just got out of their college debt, they finally have some money in their savings account, they are way closer to a millionaire than a millionaire is to a billionaire. Like, we'll watch. But like the actual difference in wealth is fucking insane.
you walk around the same streets as both the Riff, the RAF, and professionals all the same. You probably know people who still live at home, friends slumming it with roommates, couples sharing a 2-bedroom, and high earners with a single family home, a dog, 2 kids, and the white picket fence, giving you a decent perspective of life for the average person. But when you're so rich that money basically doesn't matter, everything changes completely. One unavoidable characteristic of becoming a billionaire is that you end up in such an isolated social circle that you often cease to relate to the common person and your life becomes unrecognizable. For this reason, billionaires actually have more in common with the homeless than they do with most people. Doesn't pay taxes, undiagnosed mental illness, on the kind of drugs you don't even know how to get, and never even heard of the Epstein files. Now, it's natural to look at your life where you work 40 hours a week for just enough to scrape by and think, how does someone even get to be a billionaire in the...
In raw money, yes, but in quality of life, I'd argue no. I would imagine that like, I mean, it depends. Compared to someone who's like in debt or who's like broke, but I would say to a lot of people who are just kind of getting by, maybe they work a normal job or whatever. I like a lot of streamers actually probably pretty like relatively similar lives. You know, like it's like do you have enough money that you are not going hungry at night, right? Is what I would say. Your life is actually not that far away from someone who has like $1 million. It is when you get to a, like, and chat, the only reason I'm saying this, and granted, I had my college paid for, so I never had to worry about debt. But when I was a college student, I didn't have things given. I was a broke college student, right? Granted, I got to go to college. That was already a privilege. But I have sort of experienced wealth at like different kind of points in my life, and also talked to people who came from nothing and then, eventually got money. But the difference between that and the giga ultra rich it's unthinkable.
First place. It's really pretty simple. At some point or another, we've all had the genius thought, what if 1 million people just gave me $1? It would barely inconvenience them, but then I would have $1 million. While most of us stop at this fantasy, impressed by our...
Like, and here's the other thing, chat. Let's say you're like the average American. If I give you $1 million, your life won't change. It depends. I think you'll have a lot less. Like it might do away with your financial stresses, which would be good. But like for a lot of people, okay, $1 million, like okay, cool. You've paid off your rent or your debts. You can now afford a down payment on a house, maybe. You don't have to worry about spending money on groceries every week. But it's not like $1 million doesn't mean you get your life all of a sudden. It's almost like you get a less stressful version of your life. That's maybe the better way to frame it. Like $1 million will give you the same life you have now, chat, without stress, which is a really good thing. Don't get me wrong. It's a really good thing.
Their own raw ingenuity, some people throughout history have gone further, extrapolated on this scheme, and invented what is known today as a business. As an example, Reed Hastings and Mark Randolph thought,
says the million. I'm not a millionaire. I've told you guys. I mean, like, let me put it to you this way. I think another way of framing this is this: when you are broke and you have financial stress, money means a lot more. All of a sudden, once you don't have to worry about, once you're out of debt, you're actually saving money in investments, or maybe you've purchased property and you have a mortgage, right? Once you've dealt away with financial stresses, money does not mean that much more for your quality of life. That's my honest experience. Partly because I've seen people who are really stressed worrying about money, And then I see them get money and not be stressed. And I've also seen people with a lot more money who are miserable because even though they don't have any of the financial stresses, they've just not found out a way to be happy outside of money.
What if you give me
And there too, I don't know if you're joking. Like, I'm actually really open with my community about how much money I have, so that you guys know that you're not donating money to a Twitch millionaire. You're donating money to an aspiring Twitch millionaire. My overall net worth is higher than 500,000, lower than $1 million. There. I ain't gonna give you guys a specific number. I don't fucking penny or pocket watch and know the exact number, but there you go. I'm not a millionaire. I have more than $500,000 though. There you go. Life's great.
$16 every month and I mail you Shrek 2 on DVD? Easy $6.5 billion. Elon Musk said, what if you give me $8,000 and I pretend to give you a self-driving car every year for the next decade? Richest man on earth. Mark Zuckerberg said, what if I give you an app that collects all of your personal information in a giant database that I own, and you give me a heat lamp and a bowl of grasshoppers? To really drive home how much wealth billionaires have, when someone says they're a billionaire, they're one of only 800 people in the United States. In contrast, if someone says they're a millionaire, it means they have a house. Well,
yeah, exactly. Like nowadays, it's like billionaire means you own a house.
Politically, it's commonplace for progressives to hate billionaires.
$1 million is 10 years of comfortable living without work and maybe 15 to 20 years of comfortable living with work. Probably more with good. Okay. Does that cover for health complications? Does that cover for having kids? Don DeGora, I feel like you're talking about millionaire like back when we were in the 90s. Like, I don't think $1 million goes as far as you think it does these days.
Billionaires because they epitomize late-stage capitalism. I don't make fun of billionaires because I have an ideological bone to pick. I make fun of them because they're really fucking weird. Recently, Peter Thiel, a tech billionaire and right-wing ideas guy, appeared on a podcast and was asked if he thought the human race should survive. He then stammered over the question for 15 seconds before reluctantly answering with the classic, yes, but. Now, I'm no expert in media training, but as I frequently tell Putin, Hamas, and Benjamin Netanyahu on our weekly Zoom meetings, the correct answer to human rights questions is always to say yes right away, and only reveal later that you had your fingers crossed out of frame. Billionaires like Thiel are almost alarmingly out of touch with how to communicate with the general public, because even though he can understand a regular person's life conceptually, he can't relate to them on a personal level. For example, I get really hot at night when I go to bed, so I like to turn the temperature way down. Whereas Thiel prefers to sleep in a deep freezer, he lays down like a sarcophagus.
True.
Now, the good news is that not all billionaires base their whole personality on World of Warcraft expansions and name their company after the magic rock Sauron used to corrupt weak minds and manipulate their will.
That is fucking weird. That's a good point about Palantir.
Warren Buffett, for example, has not only pledged all of his wealth to charity after he dies, but he also still lives a very humble life in his house in Omaha that he bought in 1958 using the change he picked up off the ground.
I mean, Warren Buffett's pretty chill.
Nevertheless, most billionaires don't do much to shake off the public image that their whole existence is just about lording over their minimum wage warehouse workers as they Zillow the next 2,000 hectares of farmland to buy, sip their cognac, and mutter to their Siamese cat what pleasure it brings them to see the peasants toiling for their coin. But this isn't how billionaires run companies, this is how Mr. Beast comes up with video ideas. The ethical question of should there be billionaires at all is one of the most hot-button issues around right now because wealth inequality has been steadily increasing decade over decade, and many people believe that billionaires don't pay their fair share. This is of course ridiculous, as billionaires get divorced all the time. With that said, it is a common belief that if the government were to confiscate everyone's personal wealth above $999 million, this would lead to a dramatic improvement in the standard of living for the average person. Problem is, even if you were to yoink every stock, bond, and square inch of real estate a billionaire owns, liquidate all of it to straight cash while somehow getting market value, in the US you would get about $6.22 trillion, which would cover 11 months of government spending, or every person in the country would get a one-time payment of around $18,000. While this is nothing to scoff at, if you're one of the people who says we should eat
That's pretty nice.
the rich, it's important to consider that the average inheritance in the US is $46,000, meaning you would make more money if you ate just one of your parents. Now, because they can't yet buy more of it, billionaires are experts at managing their time. While flying private is out of reach for most of us, there are other tips you can copy from billionaires to save time in your own life. For example, when I make a new account on a website, I save time by letting Chrome auto-generate an encrypted password. I got this idea from Elon Musk, who uses the same technique to name his children. When you basically
Nice.
reach level 99 in capitalism, you might ask yourself, what do I do now? Not to worry, once you've reached the level cap, there's still plenty of side quests for you to do. While most regular people spend their time playing video games, doing arts and crafts, or playing a sport, billionaires can choose more exotic things like getting bullied on Twitter, criticizing the Chinese government exactly one time, paying pro athletes to make you feel talented, leaving the planet in search of any novelty that will make the emptiness go away, paying to boost your Path of Exile account, then streaming it to prove to anyone who doubted your multidisciplinary genius that they were in fact correct, exploring the bottom of the ocean to uncover its lost secrets, and of course exploring the bottom of the ocean and then dying instantly. In reality, when you're worth even hundreds of millions of dollars, an ultimately rookie amount, you can pretty much have anything you want.
I do think billionaires do have pretty cool ways that they can die. Like most of us are pretty limited in the ways we can die. Billionaires get cool ways to die.
Houses, luxury cars, private chef, private plane, giant house, and another giant house in a poor country that kinda sucks but has good weather, and you're not sure if purchasing power parity means the gardeners are getting paid well by their standards, or if you just own slaves. With this in mind, if you are a billionaire, it's actually pretty hard to think of a way to flex on multimillionaires, meaning the 23-year-olds on Raya who look like they're 35 aren't gonna message you back. That is of course until you remember what separates the centimillionaires from the billionaires. Big boat. Ask a girl if she'd rather be stuck in the middle of a forest with
True. That is the big difference between having a lot of millions versus having billions. It's big yacht.
the random bear or a random man, and she picks the bear every time. Ask a girl if she'd rather be stuck in the middle of the ocean with a random shark or stuck in the middle of the ocean with a random Saudi man, and she picks Muhammad every time. This is because men in the forest are broke, meaning they'll try to touch your boob, whereas men on yachts are rich, meaning they have grown weary of material desires and flew you out business class for your quirky personality. While no one has tried to sex traffic me yet, the closest I've been able to get so far was when I was on a holiday in France several years ago and made a day trip to Monaco. Now for people not in the know, Monaco is a tiny sovereign nation basically inside France and is like a Vatican City tax haven for the ultra wealthy. They have a little garden you can look at near the Monte Carlo casino, which was the only thing I could afford. And as you walk through, you're like, oh, look, a little building. Hopefully this one's a bathroom. Nope, just another Audemars Piguet watch kiosk. Then you pee on it anyway because you're in Europe. Other than this neat oceanographic museum, what I thought was the coolest part of Monaco was the port, which was divided into sections based on how important people in Monaco thought you were. In the very inner part of the harbor, you have the literal wage slave section, which is basically all the yachts that I would see back home. Then there's Worthless, which had the biggest yachts I have ever seen in real life prior to this. After that, you have Starter Yacht, which are like floating New York City penthouses.
Nice.
Then the last section in the harbor is, finally, a real yacht, which is one giant pier for the 2 or 3 mega yachts that rule the Monaco postcard photo and cost at least $100 million each. Obviously you don't stop there because these things are a dime a dozen, so then you go out in the ocean and you get, what is this, a harbor for ants? Now you might be thinking what I was thinking at the time, which was, even if you were a billionaire, why on earth would you want a mega yacht so big you can't even park it in the harbor? Exactly, to store your other yachts in, brokey, get with the program. At this point, I too was wondering how I could acquire a Russian nesting yacht until I was like, speaking of, what's that? And maybe a few kilometers farther out from the shore was this thing, which is the world's largest sailing yacht, and in the top 5 most expensive yachts ever built. It's owned by Andrei Melnichenko and designed by the guy who made this cool lemon squeezer that my mom just bought. Even though I had forgotten the oligarch
Okay, I will admit, that is a beautiful looking, like that's a beautiful piece of architecture.
class yacht existed, this guy claims he doesn't even have ties to the Russian state, making him just a regular unimportant billionaire. This argument of course didn't work on the Italian government after Russia invaded Ukraine because they saw the yacht parked outside their shoreline and said, yoink! Which brings us to the true top of the hierarchy, which isn't who owns the biggest yacht, it's who owns the biggest ocean. And you know what that means. That's right, baby, the taxpayer wins again. Check.
Woo!
Me and the boys have once again risen to the top.
Yeah.
Now, if you're looking to... Oh,
Now, what are y'all gonna do about your yachts when when America comes knocking?
oops, wrong slide. If you're looking to avoid calls from
Right.
the IRS or other scammers that manage to get your email or phone number from Zuckerberg's database,
No, they killed
you should
this
try
video.
Today's sponsor, Incogni. Incogni is a service that contacts data brokers on your behalf to request the removal of your information from their products and services. This means it won't be able to be purchased or acquired by potential scammers, spammers, or crazy exes, even though you wish they would sometimes. This is something data brokers have to comply with, they just don't really want to, so to do it yourself manually would take dozens or hundreds of hours. All you have to do is sign up for an incognito account, and right away it'll get to work, while giving you reports on what has been initiated, in progress, and completed. When you use it for the first time, you're going to think, how did it start so fast? I haven't even told it what my data is yet. But that's what you did when you signed up, suddenly causing you to realize why it makes sense that everyone in the world has your email and phone number now. If you'd like to give Incognito a try, you could use promo code CASUALLY at the link in the description to...
All right, well, chat, we learned about billionaires.